Sir, you need to leave right now.
And I paid for my coffee. What's the legal reason you're removing me?
The manager says you're making people uncomfortable. You don't belong here.
Don't belong isn't a crime. Am I being detained? Yes or no?
This is private property. Stand up and walk outside.
Touch me again and you're crossing a line you can't.
The officer's voice cut through the low murmur of the cafe. Sir, you need to leave. Right now. The man looked up slowly from his laptop. I am having coffee. Is there a problem? It was 8:42 a.m. inside a small downtown cafe in Springfield, Illinois. Morning light pressed through the front windows, catching steam rising from ceramic mugs. The smell of roasted beans mixed with burnt milk. Every table was taken. Lawyers in suits. College students hunched over notes. A young mother rocking a stroller with her foot. No one was loud. No one was causing trouble. The man being confronted sat alone near the window. Black. Mid-40s. Navy blazer. Plain white shirt. No tie. His coffee was half finished. A legal pad sat beside his laptop, handwritten notes filling the page in tight, precise lines. You were asked to leave, the officer repeated louder now. The manager says you're making people uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, how the man asked. His voice stayed even. His hands remained flat on the table, palms visible. I paid for my drink. I'm waiting for someone. Waiting for... The officer shifted his weight. His hand hovered near his duty belt. This isn't a discussion. This is private property. You don't belong here. A chair scraped softly somewhere behind them. Someone stopped typing. Heads turned slowly at first, then all at once. A woman near the counter raised her phone, chest-high camera already recording. I don't belong here, the man said. He glanced around the room. Every other customer avoided his eyes. What exactly have I done wrong? You're refusing a lawful order, the officer said. That makes this a problem. The cafe felt smaller now. Air heavier. The espresso machine hissed, then went silent. Even the music overhead seemed to fade. The man closed his laptop carefully. He slid it aside and stood, not rushed, not defiant. Officer, I am asking you one more time to explain the legal basis for removing me. The officer stepped closer. Too close. You can explain it outside. This is when the tension snapped from awkward to dangerous. The officer reached out, fingers brushing the man's elbow. Not a grab, not yet. Just enough to signal control. A voice from the back said, This doesn't look right. Another whispered, Why is he being singled out? The man did not pull away. He looked directly at the officer, eyes steady. If you touch me again, you are crossing a line you cannot undo. The officer laughed once, short and sharp. You don't get to tell me where the line is. What no one in that cafe knew. Not the barista gripping the counter. Not the woman filming. Not even the officer himself, was that the man being pushed toward the door was the highest law enforcement official in the state. And in the next few minutes, every assumption in that room was about to collapse. To understand how a quiet morning in a cafe turned into a constitutional violation. We have to step away from that room for a moment and go backward. Long before the officer's hand hovered near his belt. Long before phones were raised to record two very different lives had been shaped by power perception and silence. The man in the navy blazer was Daniel Whitaker, 46 years old, born on the south side of Chicago to a public school teacher and a postal worker. His mother used to grade papers at the kitchen table late into the night. His father woke up at 4 every morning to sort mail in winter darkness. Money was tight. Expectations were not. Daniel learned early how to be invisible when necessary and exceptional when it mattered. He learned to speak carefully, to dress neatly, to never give anyone an excuse to question why he was in a room. He watched friends get pulled over for nothing, watched teachers assume he needed less, watched authority misused and never explained. He studied political science at a state university because scholarships were real there. Law school came later nights and weekends, student loans stacked like bricks. He clerked for prosecutors who warned him quietly that the system was not built for people like him. He stayed anyway. By 35, Daniel was prosecuting corruption cases. By 40, he was leading a task force on civil rights violations. He took on police departments quietly, methodically, building cases brick by brick. He did not shout. He did not grandstand. He let evidence speak. When he ran for state attorney general, the campaign was clean and relentless. Law and order with accountability. Public safety without blind loyalty. He won by a narrow margin. The first black man to hold the office in the state's history. Daniel never carried his title loudly. He did not demand recognition. He believed legitimacy came from restraint. That morning in the cafe, he was not there as an official. He was there as a man preparing notes for a meeting on police oversight reform scheduled for later that day. Now the officer. Officer Mark Henson was 38, 10 years on the force, considered solid, dependable, not a star, not a problem on paper, raised in a small town where authority was rarely questioned and always respected. His father had been a corrections officer, his uncle a deputy sheriff. The message was clear growing up. Order first, questions later. Mark joined the department straight out of the academy. He learned procedure well, learned control better. De-escalation was something discussed in training rooms, not always practiced on the street. His record showed a pattern that supervisors described as assertive. Civilians described it differently. There had been complaints, not many. Enough. Disrespectful tone, unnecessary stops. Situations that escalated instead of resolved. Each one individually dismissed as misunderstanding. No video, no witnesses willing to push, no discipline that stuck. Mark developed a habit of trusting his instincts more than explanations. He believed he could tell when someone did not belong. Coffee shops, lobbies, sidewalks near government buildings. His reports used words like suspicious presence, non-compliant attitude, failed to obey. No one ever sat him down and forced him to examine why those instincts pointed in one direction more than others. No one ever connected the dots for him. So when the call came in from the cafe manager about a man making people uncomfortable, Mark did not ask follow-up questions. He did not ask uncomfortable for whom or how. He pictured the situation before he arrived. And once the picture was in his head, nothing the man said inside that cafe was going to change it. 2 lives, 2 histories, one built on restraint, one built on unchecked authority. They were always going to collide. Back inside the cafe, time moved differently now. Every second stretched. Every small sound felt amplified. Daniel stood near the table. His chair pushed back at an awkward angle, his coffee untouched. He reached into the inside pocket of his blazer, slowly, deliberately. "Officer," he said, "I want you to understand this clearly. I am not refusing. I am asking you to pause." He pulled out his wallet and opened it just enough to show an identification card. State issued. Official. His name printed in bold letters, the seal visible. Chitaro. Mark barely glanced at it. "Put that away. I didn't ask for that." "You should look at it," Daniel said. "It explains why this situation is going where it is going." The officer took a half step back, then forward again. His voice sharpened. "I don't need explanations. I need compliance." Around them, the crowd was no longer pretending not to watch. A man near the window stood up, phone held openly now. A barista froze, mid-motion milk pitcher trembling slightly in her hand. Someone near the door whispered, "He didn't do anything." Daniel kept his voice low. "Officer, there is no lawful basis for removing me. If you proceed, you are creating a record that will follow you." That word landed wrong. Record. Mark's jaw tightened. His ears burned. In his mind, the situation had shifted from a routine removal to a challenge. Not just to his authority, but to his identity in front of a room full of strangers. "You don't threaten me," Mark said. "You don't lecture me." "I am not threatening you," Daniel replied. "I am giving you an opportunity to step back." Someone in the crowd spoke louder now. "Sir, just let him be. He's calm." Another voice followed. "Why don't you just explain why he has to leave?" Mark turned his head sharply toward the crowd. "This doesn't concern you." That was the moment phones multiplied. Screens lifted higher. Red recording lights reflected faintly off the cafe windows. Daniel took a breath. "Officer, if your concern is discomfort, then let's name it. Because nothing about my behavior violates policy or law." Mark heard only defiance. Years of training told him that when control slips, you tighten it. When people watch, you do not retreat. Retreat looks like weakness. Weakness invites chaos. He stepped closer again. "You're done here." Daniel did not move. Instead, he folded his hands calmly in front of him. "If you remove me without cause, you are abusing your authority, and this room will remember it." Silence, thick, pressurized. The officer's radio crackled faintly at his shoulder. No one spoke. No one blinked. Mark made a decision that would define the rest of his career. He reached out this time, not brushing, not signaling. His hand closed around Daniel's arm. The cafe erupted. "That's illegal. Let him go. I'm recording everything." Daniel looked down at the hand on his sleeve, then back at the officer's face. "This is the escalation you chose," he said quietly. Mark did not hear the warning. All he heard was the crowd. All he felt was his authority slipping through his fingers. And instead of stopping, he pulled. The moment Mark's hand closed around Daniel's arm, the room fractured. Sound rushed back in all at once. Chairs scraped hard against the floor. Someone near the counter gasped. Another voice rose, sharp and angry. "Don't touch him!" Mark pulled. Not violently, not yet. Just enough to force movement. Daniel's shoulder twisted slightly as his balance shifted. His notebook slid off the table and hit the floor pages, splaying open like something exposed. "This is unnecessary," Daniel said. His voice stayed steady, but his jaw tightened. "You are escalating without cause." Mark ignored him. He guided Daniel toward the door, his grip firm now, fingers digging into fabric and muscle. The distance from table to exit was barely 15 feet, but it stretched. Every step felt slowed, magnified. The bell above the cafe door chimed as it opened. Cold morning air rushed in, cutting through the warmth and smell of coffee. Outside, traffic moved normally. Horns, footsteps. A city unaware that something had just shifted inside one small room. Mark stopped just outside the entrance. "Turn around," he said. "For what reason?" Daniel asked. Failure to comply. Daniel looked past him, back through the glass. Faces pressed close now. Phones up, eyes wide. The story was already leaving the room, carried in pixels and whispers. Mark reached for his cuffs. The metal caught the light. "This is your last chance to stop," Daniel said. His voice dropped lower. "I am warning you." Mark snapped one cuff around Daniel's wrist. The sound was loud. Final. The second cuff followed, colder, tighter than necessary. Daniel's shoulders stiffened as steel closed around skin. Someone shouted. He didn't resist. Another voice cracked. "This is wrong." Mark guided Daniel toward his patrol car parked at the curb. Each step drew stares from pedestrians who had no context, only an image. A black man in handcuffs. An officer in control. A story people thought they already understood. The back door of the cruiser opened. Plastic seat. Disinfectant smell layered with old sweat and stale coffee. Mark pushed Daniel inside. Not roughly, but without care. The door shut, solid, heavy. Inside the car, the world went quiet again. Muffled street noise. The faint crackle of the radio from the front seat. Daniel sat upright, hands cuffed behind him, wrists already aching from the pressure. He closed his eyes for a brief second. Not in fear, in calculation. Times, witnesses, angles, evidence. In the front seat, Mark stared straight ahead. His breathing was shallow, fast. He adjusted his mirror once, then again catching Daniel's reflection for a split second before looking away. Something had shifted in him too. A thin thread of doubt pulling tight. But it was too late to reverse course now. The car pulled away from the curb. Inside the cafe, Daniel's notebook still lay open on the floor. On the top page, written in block letters, was the title of the meeting he had been preparing for all morning. Police Accountability Framework. The patrol car rolled into the station lot at 9:17 a.m. Tires crunched over gravel. The engine idled for a moment longer than necessary before Mark shut it off. He sat still, hands on the wheel, jaw set, as if waiting for something to tell him what to do next. Daniel waited, calm, upright, breathing measured. They walked him inside through the side entrance. Fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, the familiar smell of disinfectant and paper. Officers at desks glanced up, then back down. Another arrest, another morning. At the booking desk, a sergeant with gray at his temples took Daniel's wallet. He opened it, routine practiced. Driver's license first, then another card. His eyes paused. He leaned closer. "Mark," the sergeant said quietly. "Where did you pick him up?" "Café on Jefferson," Mark answered. Refusal to comply. The sergeant looked again at the card. His expression changed, slow and unmistakable. He did not raise his voice. That made it worse. "You need to step back for a second." He turned the card so Mark could see it clearly this time. The seal? The title? The name? State Attorney General Daniel Whitaker. The room shifted. Chairs stopped moving. Keyboards went silent. Someone at the far desk looked over, then stood. Mark stared. The words did not register at first. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. "That's not real," he said. "Anyone can print a card." The sergeant did not argue. He reached for the phone. The call was short. Too short. Yes, he's here. Understood." He hung up and looked at Daniel. "Sir, I apologize for the delay. Please remain seated." "Remain seated," Mark repeated, confused. The door behind them opened. The station captain entered, jacket still on, face tight. He looked at Daniel first, then at Mark. "Do you know who this is?" the captain asked. Mark swallowed. "This is the State Attorney General." the captain continued. Your office oversees our department. He sets our prosecution standards. He signs off on our misconduct reviews. Mark's ears rang. The room felt suddenly too bright, too open. He took a step back without realizing it. The captain turned to Daniel. Sir, on behalf of this department, I need to say this should never have happened. Daniel met his eyes. I agree. The captain looked back at Mark. Remove the cuffs. Now. Mark's hands shook as he unlocked them. The metal fell away. Red marks ringed Daniel's wrists. He did not rub them. He did not react. He simply stood. This incident will be documented in full, Daniel said. Every minute, every decision, every witness. The captain nodded. Yes, sir. Mark stood frozen, the weight of the morning crashing down all at once. The cafe, the crowd, the cuffs, the cameras. He finally understood what had been unfolding since the moment he walked through that cafe door. And there was no undoing it. By noon, the video was everywhere. Uploaded first without context. Just sound movement pressure. A black man in a cafe, a uniform, a hand on an arm, cuffs closing. Then the follow-up clip, shakier, quieter the moment inside the station when the tone shifted, when authority reversed direction. By 2 p.m., the man's name was attached. State Attorney General Daniel Whitaker removed from cafe by police officer during morning meeting. By 6 p.m., it was no longer just a story. It was a reckoning. Daniel did not speak to the press that day. He returned to his office, wrists still marked, jacket folded over the back of his chair. His staff waited silent, watching him closely. He sat down and asked for a timeline. Names, badge numbers, body camera logs, dispatch records, surveillance footage from the cafe. File everything, he said. Preserve everything. The formal complaint was filed before sunset. It named Officer Mark Henson individually. It named the department. It cited unlawful detention, false arrest, violation of civil rights under color of law. The language was precise, unemotional, unforgiving. Within 24 hours, the Internal Affairs Division placed Mark on administrative leave. Badge surrendered. Weapon logged. Access revoked. The department issued a statement calling the incident under review. The statement satisfied no one. The public reaction moved faster. The video crossed state lines overnight. 3 million views, then 6. Comment sections filled with personal stories that sounded too similar. Coffee shops, lobbies, sidewalks. People removed for being out of place. Civil rights attorneys dissected the footage frame by frame on television. There was no ambiguity, no resistance, no threat. Only escalation. An independent investigation followed. Mark's record was reopened. Complaints once dismissed were stacked side by side. Patterns became visible when placed under real light. Stops that went nowhere. Encounters that ended in nothing but paperwork. Discretion applied unevenly. Witnesses from the cafe submitted statements. Videos from 4 angles were authenticated. Audio synced. Timestamps matched. The officer's report conflicted with every piece of evidence. 2 weeks later, the department announced its findings. Officer Mark Henson had violated use of authority guidelines, de-escalation policy, and constitutional standards. His employment was terminated effective immediately. His name was forwarded for decertification. The city settled the civil lawsuit quietly months later. The number was not released publicly, but the reforms were. Mandatory bias review. Revised removal protocols. Independent oversight with subpoena power. Training that carried consequences. Daniel spoke once briefly at the press conference announcing the settlement. This was not about who I am, he said. This is about what happens when unchecked authority meets assumption. If this could happen to me, it is happening to others who do not get apologies. Mark did not attend the announcement. By then his career was over. No department would touch him. His actions had become required viewing at the academy, a case study in what not to do. Justice had moved. Not loudly, not theatrically, but decisively. What happened in that cafe was not a misunderstanding. It was not a bad morning. It was not a communication issue. It was a violation of law, plain and simple, and the law is clear about moments like this. Under the Fourth Amendment, a police officer cannot detain or remove someone without reasonable, articulable suspicion of a crime. Discomfort is not a crime. Presence is not a crime. Silence is not a crime. Sitting with a laptop and coffee is not a crime. The moment Officer Henson placed his hand on Daniel Whitaker, the encounter crossed from conversation into seizure. From that point forward, every action required legal justification. None existed. Civil rights law goes further. When authority is applied selectively, when enforcement is driven by assumptions tied to race rather than behavior, it becomes discrimination under color of law. Intent does not have to be spoken aloud. It is proven through action pattern and outcome. In this case, the outcome was undeniable, but law alone does not explain why this keeps happening. Psychology fills in the rest. Bias rarely announces itself. It hides behind words like instinct and gut feeling. It convinces people that their reactions are neutral, even when evidence says otherwise. When bias is paired with authority and no one interrupts it, escalation becomes inevitable. This is why bystanders matter. Phones matter. Calm voices matter. The presence of witnesses in that cafe did not stop the arrest, but it preserved the truth. Documentation turned a private abuse of power into a public record. If you find yourself in a similar situation, the goal is not to win the argument in the moment. The goal is to survive it intact. Stay calm. Speak clearly. Ask for the legal basis. Do not resist physically, if it is safe and lawful record. If you cannot make sure, someone else does. Names, times, locations. These details become protection later, and if you are the one watching, not involved but present, understand this. Silence protects power. Documentation protects people. Daniel Whitaker did not receive justice because of who he was. He received justice because the system was forced to confront itself in public. That pressure should not require a title. It should not require a viral video. The real lesson is not that authority figures can be wrong. It is that unchecked authority will be wrong again, unless it is challenged, recorded, and held to account. Now the question belongs to you. If this had happened to someone without resources, without a platform, without power, would the outcome have been the same? And what are we willing to change so the answer does not depend on who is sitting at the table?